We are recording. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome into our destination of the month for October. We are very, very excited to have our friend, colleague, partner, collaborator, travel design expert, Luca from Greenland, although she's not actually in Greenland right now. She's in Copenhagen, but we'll get into that. Join us this month to tell us all about Greenland and have a really, really fun, lighthearted, casual, and informative and inspiring conversation about all things Greenland. Before we get started, Amanda, I'm going to turn it over to you to give everybody a quick technological overview and what to do and how to engage with us during this chat.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm one of the travel designers. Just heads up for keeping your microphones on mute just for the time being. We'll have questions at the end, but feel free if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, put them in the chat and I'll be monitoring those as we go. If there's anything that urgent comes up that we need to discuss while we're talking about it, we can do that. Otherwise, the majority of the questions will wait till the end and have some time for some question and answer period. And as Michael said, we're recording and it will be up on our website in the next day or two. And we'll send an email to everyone just letting you know that it's available to rewatch if you want to.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. And without any further ado, Luca, it's good to have you back. I think the last time we chatted was about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
So excited to hear what's new, what's exciting, all of that stuff. But before we get into things about Greenland, I would love to, I know a bit about your personal story and your history, but it might be nice to share a little bit more about your personal relationship with Greenland, when you've been there, when you've lived there, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe start there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was born in Denmark, but my mom is from Greenland. So I'm half Inuk, which is the singular of Inuit. But I'm an old person. Yeah, my dad is Danish, but I went to Greenland when I was 19 because I was curious about my heritage. And I knew my Greenlandic family, but I wanted to try and live in Greenland. So I did that for 8 years. I was only supposed to be there for like 9 months, but I liked it so much that I didn't want to go back. But eventually I did. And I worked with the tourist board of Greenland for 20 years. So that was really important to me that I still had the connection to Greenland. So yeah. And then in 2018.
Oh, sorry, how long did you, when you moved there when you were 19, how long did you end up living there? It was
8 years.
8 years, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I was in South Greenland for 3 years, and then in Nuuk, which is, when you look at the map, basically also South Greenland, but we don't say that. So yes, I loved it there. But Nuuk is like my second home. That is where my family is, even though they're not from there. And it's also where my friends are. So that is where I like to go and feel at home.
Yeah. Not to jump ahead, but it's also probably by far the biggest city in Greenland, yeah?
Absolutely. Now it's 19,000 inhabitants. When I lived there, it was about 13,000. So it has grown a lot in the past 25 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so you moved back to Denmark. Were you in Copenhagen at that point or somewhere else in Denmark?
Yes, I was in Copenhagen because Visit Greenland had an office here. At the time it was called Greenland Tourism. Actually, facts and news, they just closed they're closing the office in Copenhagen. It's been there the entire time since Visit Greenland started in, I believe, 92. So it's a bit sad to see it go. But yeah, I was working out of the office in Copenhagen and really enjoyed that because I could go back to Greenland often and also travel around the world promoting Greenland as a destination, which I really enjoyed. Yeah.
There's an event here in Seattle tomorrow where Sarah Woodall and Idrisia and a few others are going to be there. It's like a Nordic road show. So I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, right. I heard about that. And I was like, no, I have had such a busy summer. So I started my own company in 2018 and had, basically only one real season. And then the pandemic. So it's been 2 years where Greenland was totally shut down, or in 21 we could have travelers from Scandinavia, but no international travelers. So it's really hard for my business because I mostly have international travelers. But what I didn't do in 20 and 21, I've definitely been doing in 22. It's been so busy. It's been an interesting season.
Yeah. So just to touch on the COVID thing, are there any entry requirements, restrictions, or movement restrictions requirements now?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
So and I think they lifted everything at the end of 21.
Okay.
And then everyone in Greenland got COVID around Christmas and New Year's. So everybody was sick around that time, and then was just over with. And now I guess everybody's immune, or they get the booster vaccine and all that. So we're all good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's been for everybody a very busy summer in Greenland. We have had lots of visitors. I don't know how many, but I know that everybody's been busy. So it's been good.
Yeah. And we've seen that in other parts of the world, as you can imagine as well, right? Where it's been just, it's a bit of drinking water from the fire hydrant, right? That's just, we all expected a bit of a bounce back in 2022, but I'm not quite sure that everyone expected. This is why you're seeing all the issues at the airports and the issues at
Exactly.
properties and hotels, right? And there's people they don't have the staff, right? And they can't train people fast enough, and it's just leading to, in some cases, sheer and utter chaos.
Yeah, Greenland even closed the sale of tickets in July because they closed the sale for tickets. They didn't sell any tickets because they were fully booked, and because they only have like a small fleet, and they had so many delays and cancellations. They have to get people out before they could sell or fly the people that wanted to. It was really difficult. Wow. So they opened up again, I think mid-August or something like that. But I think it didn't affect travelers as much as the local population, because you're just used to, well, you buy a ticket and you can go in 2 weeks, but you couldn't do that at the time. Yeah. So it's pretty insane. Yeah.
What's your, so a little bit hectic this year, obviously, for the people on the ground there, and even maybe for travelers. Any expectations on what it looks like moving forward? We're probably getting into that time of year where hopefully people can staff up and reevaluate operations and logistics. Do you expect next year to be a little bit more normal, whatever the hell that means?
Yeah, I think it's impossible that we're going to have such a bad summer again in terms of weather, which has just been so challenging. So I think it can only get better. And as we are getting new airports in 2 years, I think that will also change. I'm still hoping there's not going to be like lots of tourists, and I don't think it will be, because we still have a limit to how many we can host in each destination, because we only have so and so many hotels, and everybody wants to travel at the same time. We need to kind of get people to travel all year to Greenland, and that will also be easier when you have the direct connections that you don't have the delays that you see now because of the small planes that we are flying with domestically in Greenland.
Sure. We're jumping around a little bit, but while you're talking about this, so you said that the 2 new airports going to be in Ilulissat and Nuuk, is that right? Right. Opening up in 2024. And do you have any idea where are there direct flights from mainland US, or you're not sure?
No, I know that Air Greenland did a code share with Iceland Air. And as you know, Iceland Air flies to Europe and the US, and they have so many destinations. So I think that will also affect Greenland in a positive way. Maybe Iceland Air will be flying directly, as they are already, but now on the smaller planes, small type of planes.
Okay.
So yeah, hopefully there'll be other airlines as well, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, because right now,
Nobody knows.
right now you're flying through Copenhagen or Reykjavik, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
those-
Keflavik, yeah.
well, yeah,
The
right.
international airport.
Reykjavik
Because,
domestic or Keflavik international, but both of which are in the Reykjavik.
yeah, but actually now it is mostly Keflavik because it's now
Is it?
Iceland Air. Yeah, they used to have like this daughter company which was called Air Iceland Connect,
Mhm.
but they changed it so it's only Iceland Air.
Got it. And I told you this story, but the most scared I've ever been, maybe in my life, certainly on an airplane, was on that flight from the Reykjavik domestic to Nuuk, back in 2018, and we took off in a prop plane in a blizzard at 10 p.m. In the middle of February, flying over the North Atlantic. I was, and the plane was the whole time. Anyway, it was. I'm glad that maybe there's bigger, nicer planes that are flying in there.
No, you get a better understanding of why you have to cancel the flight when the weather is bad.
Sure.
So rather safety. So when people get angry that they can't get back home on the time they thought they were going to be back, I would rather say just appreciate they will not be flying when the weather is bad.
Right. Absolutely. I know we generally leave some of the questions to the end, but there was a good question here from Kathleen. She said her daughter lives in Juneau, Alaska, which is a bit of a cruise port. And the city is revisiting the idea of quotas, right, to limit the number of tourists and maintain the locals' quality of life. Is there any conversation about something like that in Greenland? Or is Greenland, just because of the location and the limited number of flights in there anyway, does it sort of have that sort of self-imposed quota as it is?
I don't think that there are quotes, but we, at the tourist board and at the government, they're working towards getting smaller cruise ships, and the ECO, which is the Arctic non-profit organization that is working with Arctic regions on how to work with cruise tourism in a sustainable way, and also to kind of respect the local culture. This is very important to Greenland. And of course, because of COVID, we haven't seen the large cruise ships for a couple of years. I was actually in Nuuk in summer. I sent my family off with vacation for 2 weeks, and then I went to Greenland to work. But when I was there was a cruise ship with, I think they had room for 4,000 passengers, which is big for Greenland. But they only had like 3,000 passengers. And they're way too big for Greenland. We used to have this PAX tax, which I thought was a much better solution for Greenland, because often these cruise ships don't leave anything behind for the local communities, which is really bad for the economy and for the environment. But I think the smaller expedition cruise ships are good for Greenland and are using local operators with local tours and so on. So that's a much better way to work. And I know they have had issues in Alaska and also changed things around because of that same issue with too many people coming in.
I think I can't help but think of Iceland, right, as like the poster child for over tourism. And I know that the numbers that they see, I mean, far exceed what Greenland would see, but also space capacity, all of that stuff is a lot bigger there. So I would imagine to some degree there's the, let's not be Iceland in a way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've always been looking towards Iceland and how they've been successful, but it's not in anybody's interest to grow as big as Iceland. Not in any way. And I think, as I said, we still have logistics that are very different from Iceland. In Iceland, you can drive your own car around the country. You can't do that in Greenland. So you either have to get around by boat or by by air. So it just, yeah, there's a limit.
Totally different beast. Totally different beast, right? In terms of yeah. And then, you know, without going too far down the rabbit hole now, I mean, it's always a delicate balance of wanting to reap the rewards of the tourism dollar and make sure that it's, but while also making sure that it's being used, right, to protect and sustain the local culture and the local environment and animal and all of that stuff, right? And finding that balance is delicate.
Absolutely.
All right, you've mentioned like 9 things that I want to ask you about. So I might like just popcorn style bounce around here and you're going to be like, you know, whiplash in terms of the questions, but in my head. So how often do you go back to Greenland now? How often do you were there in the summer for 2 weeks at Nuuk, but how often do you go back?
Well, obviously I didn't go for a long time because of the pandemic, but this past year I've been back like every month or every second month, something like that.
Okay.
And last time I spent 3 weeks in Greenland. I like to go on trips with clients myself, but I found this summer that I've just been too busy. So I had to just handle the office work, and the good thing is that I have people on ground that are very capable, and so I usually use local hosts that take care of the clients. And I found out this summer that it's a very good idea, especially when you have to change the plans for the 20th time because of some delays with the flights and the weather. So this summer, actually, we had, the winter was really long. So the tours that we can usually do mid-June, we couldn't do. There was still ice on the lakes, and the water was frozen. So it was challenging.
Yeah. I want to just a quick side note on that. You know, one of the things that we've experienced very pointedly over the past 10 months since things have picked up is the value and the importance of having those folks on the ground there to really be able to triage and manage and things that inevitably come up, right? Whether it's weather, whether it's guides, getting ill, or I mean, we had someone recently in Italy where the driver, was in a small car accident, but was unable to get there. And so the importance of having folks that are there on the ground, not in some remote office in London, New York, or something else, that can actually be there on the ground to either physically meet you or at least certainly support any of those logistical challenges as they come up. Because as you mentioned, in Greenland, maybe more than almost any other destination, they are inevitably and invariably going to come up, right? And so having that team like us and having your team on the ground there is so important to make sure that the process, the travel experience is as seamless as possible, even though it's never going to be seamless because of just the nature of it.
Exactly. I actually did go on one trip that was in mid-August with a group of 24 people that were interested in climate change and how to deal with it. And that was really interesting to me to go and actually meet, my own travelers, my own clients, because sometimes I speak to the local operators and they were like, oh, these people, they were like this and that, and asking me questions. I'm like, you see more of my guests than I do myself. So it's like,
right.
you know more about them than I do.
Sure.
So it's actually really nice to travel and be together with the guests. And we were lucky with the weather at the time. So it was a good trip.
Yeah. But to your point, it's nice to have that personal connection with the travelers while they're there. And yet, as you also said, it's also not something that you can do or that we can do on a regular basis, and I think a large part of the value that we offer and that you offer is having these handpicked folks that are there that are your concierge, they are your main contact, they're there to meet you and greet you and all. I mean, that's just, and they live there and they know people there and they can connect you with everyone, and it's like, I mean, I just had this experience. I was just in Croatia and Germany and Slovenia, and each place it was like I had my bestie there, and it was an amazing experience because it allowed me to dive into that experience and knowing that, all right, well, if I do something stupid, like, or I get myself, or something changes, or my train changes, my flight changes, I lose my bags or whatever, or whatever, the weather's not cooperating for my visit to blah, blah, blah. Someone's there to really just handle that. And so but we have to trust those folks, right, that are there on the ground. And so that's a huge value add. Oh my gosh, all over the place. I was going to touch on a little bit of the history of Greenland, because I don't know how much people know about present day Greenland and its relationship with Denmark, but also historical Greenland and its relationship in terms of the Inuit, in terms of Leif Erikson and the Vikings and the European, whatever. So is there, before we get into the specifics of things like the Northern Lights and dog sledding and blah, 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 like, can you give us maybe a high level overview give us the history of Greenland in 60 seconds?
Yeah, so, what I think is really amazing about Greenland is that my ancestors have been living in Greenland for 4,000 years. And then we had the Leif Erikson that came in year 982. He was an outlaw, and he happened to stumble into the southern part of Greenland. And he was actually the one that named the country Greenland, mainly to attract people from Iceland to come back with him and start sheep farming there. But it is actually true that it is green in South Greenland. So he was right. So he was the first one, and they were there for 300, 400 years maybe. And then they disappeared. And probably it's been peaceful with the Inuits there because they were living off the land and Greenlanders were living off the sea mainly. So there was interaction, but they were not competitors in any way.
No history of conflict or
no conflicts.
Yeah.
But I think it just was too harsh an environment to survive in, so the Vikings disappeared. Then in 1721, when Denmark was a part of Norway, the priest called Hans Egede, he went to Greenland to find the Vikings that had been there. They thought they were still there. They didn't know, to Christian them. But he didn't find any Vikings, so he Christianed the Greenlanders instead, the Inuit people, which was quite scary for the population because in their belief, Mother of the Sea, she's the one that has all the animals that you catch and that you live off. And in Christianity, they wanted you to go up to heaven, and what is there? There's nothing. So it's pretty scary. But actually now most Greenlanders are Christian, and there are lots of other like very small religions in Greenland, which I find quite interesting. I can't even mention. It's all kind of small that I didn't even know of before I lived in Greenland. But I guess it's important to have some kind of belief when you live in such a powerful nature, because you are not in charge. Something or someone else is. Like, it's just very powerful to feel that when you're in nature. So I think it's natural to have that. You need to have some kind of belief. And today, present Greenlanders, especially the young ones, have gone back to our old beliefs, or maybe not like that, but more making a statement with the facial tattoos and the tattoos on your hands, which is from our own belief and from our past that we're proud of, and that we get back to again. And that is also something to do with the relationship to Denmark. So Greenland was colonized in 1721, and then it was a part of Denmark until we got home rule governance in 1979. And then in 1991, is it already that long ago? No, 2009, sorry, 2009, that we got, it's called self-rule. So it means that Greenland has taken home more areas, but foreign politics is still something that Denmark is responsible for, which is also why someone like Trump will ask Denmark if he can buy Greenland. Right. But Denmark are very so the response to that was you have to ask the Greenlandic people because they decide that. Yeah. So that's the relation. I think that
was a hard no.
Sorry?
That was a hard no.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. What's the, I mean, this is like, again, a rabbit hole, but what's the financial relationship between Denmark and Greenland now? Like, does Denmark send funds to Greenland, or is it? Yeah,
so there's still a huge grant that Greenland gets every year, but that doesn't grow with the inflation. So in 2009, that is kind of the same level that we are still getting from Denmark. But that is also why it's important to develop new industries, and tourism is one of them, because traditionally it has been seafood, and it still is our most important export. But tourism is hopefully something that is going to help sustain the economy, even though we have rubies, we have gold. They haven't found oil yet, but it is said that potentially that there's oil. But I think that has kind of, because of climate change, and we don't want, and actually we have hydropower in Greenland, so we have a lot of natural resources.
So accessing them is probably the challenge.
Yeah, that's the challenge.
There's a great question here from Kathleen again. She asked about the historic or indigenous name of Greenland. I mean, it wasn't Greenland back in before.
Yeah. So Greenlanders called it Kalaallit Nunaat, which means the Greenlanders' land, or we call it Inuit Nunaat, which means the Inuits' land. Okay. So that is our name for it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. There you go, Kathleen. Great question. All right, so let's get into. There's a bunch more that I want to get into, and we have about 30 minutes or less left here. Again, we could probably do this for 3 hours and not touch on everything, but we're going to try to zip through a couple things here. So, tell us about the 7. There are 7 different designated regions in Greenland. Yeah.
Yeah, 6, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, walk us through them. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the national park up in northeast Greenland, which is the largest national park in the world, and you actually need special permission to go into the national park. It's just on the edge of a village where you can fly into. Okay. And the population there is like 500 people. It's a very small community, very far north. Yeah. And then that is on the northeast coast, and then further southeast, that is what we call East Greenland, and there is a small population of about 3,000 mainly in Tasiilaq, but also other small communities. Then we have South Greenland, So I should say that East Greenland is more rugged, rough. They do dog sledding until May, actually, because the winter is longer there and summer shorter. Then we have South Greenland, which is very lush and green, and they still do sheep farming there, taught from the Vikings and later on Icelanders, and also they grow potatoes and lettuce and that you wouldn't expect in Greenland. And there are even small woods they have been planted, actually with seeds from Alaska, back in the late 80s, early 90s, that are actually woods now, which is fun. Very beautiful. I love the contrast of South Greenland because it's very lush and green, but then you also have the ice and the glaciers and the more blue icebergs, because the icebergs tend to be smaller in South Greenland than in East and North.
Is South Greenland the one most exposed from the ice cap out of all the different regions, you think, or no?
Well, definitely there's one place where you can get to the ice sheet from Narsarsuaq. You can hike up on the ice sheet from there, but you can also do that in a few other places in Greenland. Like Kangerlussuaq is the one that is mostly known for most people, because that is where you land when you fly from Copenhagen, and most people go that way. But then we have what we call the capital region, which is mainly Nuuk, with the population of 19,000. Should say that the total population is 56,000. So it's almost, it is 1/3 of the population or more.
Yeah.
And of course, that I guess is just natural that the capital is growing, because that is where you get education and you can have good jobs and so on, when you no longer live as much as hunters and fishermen as we used to. And then we have the Arctic Circle region, which is Kangerlussuaq, which I mentioned before, where you can access the ice sheet easily. There's a road all the way to the ice sheet, which is 20 kilometers. And there is a huge backcountry from Kangerlussuaq, which is the only place in Greenland which is in the middle of the country, which is not a natural place to live, because you will always live by the coast where you can hunt seals and fish and all that. But it was built during World War II for the planes to land in between North America and Europe. So that is also why they built like roads around, and they used to live a lot more people. Now it's only around 500 people there, all working around the airport. And the summers there get really warm, easily 20-25 degrees Celsius, which is pretty warm. And the winters are really cold. So when you land there in the winter and you get off the plane, it's like your nostrils are freezing because it's so cold. I love that feeling. And from there, there's about 160 kilometers. There's a hike you can do to the nearest town called Sisimiut, which is the next biggest town in Greenland. And this area is quite unique because you can, because we have all the mountains. Greenland is like a big ball. So you have the mountains on the fringes of Greenland, and then you have the ice in the middle, and then you have kind of outlets, which are the glaciers and the fjords from there. But in this area, you can travel, you can either hike the long hike. In the winter, you can go by dog sled. It takes 3 days, 2 nights. And you go by snowmobile, and some are doing it's on fat bikes. So it's a huge playground in the winter. And there's also a place called Maniitsoq, which is mainly known for fishing for Arctic char. Which
And we're still in Destination Arctic Circle, yeah?
We're in Arctic Circle, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is, of course, around the Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
Then we move up north, and we have the Disco Bay, which is Ilulissat, which is the most popular place in Greenland to visit because of the icebergs there, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They just built a visitor center there, which is really, really beautiful. They opened in 21, so there were not many at the opening.
Not great timing, but yeah, sure.
Bad timing, but now it's there, and you can actually walk on top of the building, and then you can see the icebergs from there. But you can also hike out there, and the area is protected because Inuits have lived there for 4,000 years in that area. So you can still kind of see where there used to be houses. So that is a very interesting area. But then the Disco Bay also have Aasiaat and Qasigiannguit and Qeqertarsuaq. And then you go further north, which is what we call North Greenland. Even when you look at it.
Before you do that, Ilimanak is also in the Disco Bay region, yeah?
Yes, right. So Ilimanak is this tiny settlement, which is about half an hour from Ilulissat, where you have to pass the ice fjord to get there. And they just, well, the lodge has been around for, I think, maybe 5 years or something like that. They restored the oldest buildings in Greenland, which was actually the son of Hans Egede, who built this house. So they restored it, and now it turned into a very beautiful, restored building where they have Cox, the Michelin restaurant from the Faroe Islands that have been there this summer, and it's going to be there next year as well. And next year is actually going to be like a whole experience. So you have like, you can actually only stay there for one night. But it's a 27-hour experience where you go by boat from Ilulissat to Ilimanak, kind of see the tiny settlement, and then have dinner at the restaurant, and then they have like a brunch the following day also at the restaurant. And you can see some more of the area, and then you go back to Ilulissat.
It was probably my favorite experience when I was there back in 2017. That like the food was out of this world, and of course, like you get that little bay right there that you can view from the lodge, right? There's small icebergs floating in there, and the hike was really wonderful. It was a very, very worthwhile experience. So
and even then the food was good, but now it's like Michelin star, and it's also same philosophy, like based on local produce or what they can catch just there. So I haven't tried it yet, unfortunately, but a lot of my clients have. So it's mainly seafood.
The feedback is good.
Yeah, it's quite an experience. That's what they say. So, and it looks beautiful on photos.
So you mentioned this early on, and I guess I'm skipping North Greenland. So do you want to talk about North Greenland, or?
No, it's fine. You can stay in the Disco Bay.
Perfect. But you mentioned early on, like, you know, the challenges in terms of logistics and transportation. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And you told me early on when I was first being introduced to Greenland, like, certainly don't plan 2 modes of transportation on the same day. And really, ideally, maybe not even every other day. Just that way you build in a buffer, because things will inevitably get canceled or changed, right?
Exactly. It's a huge country and such a small population. And it's sometimes difficult to understand the distances that we have between the places. Like, well, it's just over there, and because it's so clear in Greenland, you can see quite far, but what looks like it's just over there, it takes 2 hours to get there by boat. So it is challenging with the logistics. We travel by boat or by air, or in the winter by dog sled or snowmobile, whatever is possible. But when you are in Greenland, you also do a lot of boat tours because you want to get out to different places to see different things. So it's not a good thing if you get seasick. Right. But yeah, of course you can go kayaking and hiking and do longer trips, kind of, especially guided, because you don't have to go far. Then you are in the middle of nature when you are in Greenland. It's just nature is always just outside your doorstep. And sometimes when you are in these remote places that you go out to, you can walk for hours and not meeting any people. Or yeah, sometimes for weeks without meeting people, which I think is really rare. There's not many places where you can actually do that. And some find that terrifying to be all alone in nature. And I think others find it intriguing and really nice. So.
We were literally, we had our team meeting yesterday. We were just talking about this because Robin, who's on our call here, she's one of our travel designers. She just got back from 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks in Mongolia.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and literally, Robin, yeah, I mean, chime in. But one of the things you said yesterday was like, it was sort of terrifying and yet exciting to be out so far removed from other humans, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It was a little bit surprising because I get out in remote places back home, but this was just so remote. It was very exciting. But I imagine there's like some similarities there with Greenland. And
absolutely. And you know, we origin from Mongolia. So Inuits are actually from Mongolia.
Yeah, I was
like way back. Yeah.
History. Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. We have things in common for sure.
Yeah. And I think what I want to highlight here is Greenland's not for everyone, right? I mean, it takes a certain personality, it takes a spirit of adventure, it takes a level of patience that a lot of folks don't have. It's going to be imperfect in terms of the logistics and the planning because you're at the mercy of Mother Nature and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. You know, you're at the mercy of the boats or the planes or whatever, or who knows what else.
Yeah, so, you have to have the right mindset for Greenland.
Yeah. And
I honestly never thought I was going to do this, but I actually worked with a travel agent. I'm not going to mention any names. You're probably not going to know who that is anyways. But it was so difficult to work with them. And actually the clients were very happy, and the feedback from the local operators that were with them, and they had a local host. Okay. They went to Camp Yettua, which the luxury camp, glamping, and they actually went with them hunting for reindeer. And the young guys, it was a family of 4, so they had 2 young guys, and they shot a reindeer. And it was like an amazing experience for them. And they just thanked them so many times when they had to leave and go back. And then there was just one thing that actually all their planes were on time, except for when they were going from Ilulissat to Nuuk. Their flight, Air Greenland just put them on a direct direction instead of they had to go via Kangerlussuaq to Nuuk. So they had to go 2 hours later, and they would only arrive a little later than what they were in the beginning. But they were so angry that they changed the plan. Furious. So I got a call from the agent saying, you need to fix this now. And I was like, I had already told them, Greenland,
Yeah.
go with the flow, and you just have to be open-minded. And this was just such a small change, and
Yeah.
it just infuriated them. So I had already decided I'm not going to work with that agent again. And I told them, I'm not going to work with you again. I don't think Greenland is a good fit for you. I don't think that. I actually said exactly those words. Greenland is not for everyone.
It's definitely not. The lesson here I would want to highlight is it's not for everyone. There are going to be challenges in terms of all of that, and yet, right, it is 1000% without any shadow of a doubt worth it, because the energy there, the power of nature there, the people there, the culture there, the place and space, and all of that is unlike any place I've ever visited in my life. And this is why I've been able to go back a couple of times and want to go back again. It is so unique from my experience. Maybe it's similar to Mongolia, but so unique compared to most of the travel that we plan. And you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your soul. It is a very, very, very powerful place. And so you can deal with all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It is 1000% worth it.
Yeah. And it's a place where you feel small and humble as a human being, because nature is just so powerful and shapes, the people of Greenland, because we live with it, kind of. It's even today. Right.
Yeah. We've got about 10 minutes left here. I know there's a couple specific things I wanted to get into with you. One is Northern Lights viewing. I know that's a question that came up a couple times in the chat. I'll let you answer this, but when are the best times and locations in Greenland to see the Northern Lights?
Best times and locations?
Yep.
That's a difficult one because there's so many nice places in Greenland. But I think one is maybe overlooked, which is Qeqertarsuaq, which means the large island in the Disco Bay. And the reason I mentioned that is because the nature there is unique to Greenland. So you have black sand beaches there, which is something they have in Iceland. We don't have that in Greenland. We don't even have beaches. So it's very, very different and very lush. And it's about 2 hours by boat to get there from Ilulissat. So I can definitely recommend that. Personally, I love South Greenland. And that is what everybody that is working with tourism and working with Greenland tourism says, that South Greenland is totally overlooked because everybody wants to go and see the huge icebergs, which I understand, but there's just something magic about South Greenland. So I really like that. And what was the other question?
Just when a good time.
When is the best time to go? Yeah.
Yeah.
So my favorite season is August, September. But I also love the winter season. And I think the best time to go in the winter is March and April. I was there in March with my mom, actually. I hadn't been there for a long time with my mom. And we were dog sledding and we saw the Northern Lights. And we were a small group of 10 people and everybody really enjoyed it. It was really cold at the time, really, really cold. And we were in Qeqertarsuaq and Ilulissat. So I can recommend the winter as well, absolutely.
I've been there in September in Nuuk, and we saw the Northern. That was the most spectacular Northern Lights viewing I've seen.
And you can actually see them already from the end of August, depending on where you are in Greenland. But usually from as soon as you have a dark, clear night, you can see them. And into April. And that's the season.
Right. Okay. So, and then I was there in February, and that was less pleasant, lots of snow and wind, and I don't think it broke 0 Fahrenheit the entire time I was there. So if you're not
but you were also in Nuuk, right?
Yeah.
If you go further north, you can do dog sledding and
snowmobiling
and skiing and all that.
Okay. So how, what, knowing that there are transportation challenges there, how long do you recommend most people, if they're going to come to Greenland and only visit Greenland, what's your recommended trip length? Is it 10 days? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 months?
It depends on how many money you can spend, because it's expensive to travel in Greenland because of the logistics, because it's so far between all the places, and I do hope that air tickets are going to get cheaper than they are now, but right now it's a large portion of your budget. So I would say 9-10 days to 2 weeks is like a good portion of time to be there, and where you can get to see like 2 different destinations. I like to combine, for example, Nuuk and Ilulissat, or South Greenland, maybe South Greenland, Nuuk and Ilulissat.
Yeah, that sounds like the best combination of them right there, if you have the time.
Yeah. Exactly.
It is one thing to note is I think a lot of people are surprised at the pricing, right? Because they're not expecting, so they okay, the accommodations are nice, but they're not grandiose, right? And it's a flight or it's a boat ride. How you know, boat ride, how expensive can it be? But to your point, it's actually one of the more expensive destinations that we sell because of some of these challenges and some of the costs. So, and I mean, just getting other food to and from, right? And there's a lot of hidden expenses that people don't think about when they look at, okay, I'm staying at this cute, quaint 3-star property or whatever it might be, and I'm doing this thing. Why does it cost X amount of money? And it's because there's a lot of other things that are built and baked into that pricing that people don't think about.
Yeah, and also the fact that right now most tourists come in June, July, and August. So, of course, the hotels are full in June, July, and August, but they are not the rest of the year. So they still have to make all their money in that short period of time.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay, I've got 2 more questions for you, and then we're going to wrap up because we've got less than 5 minutes. I want to honor our time here. Any advice for travelers when they're making their first visit to Greenland? Things that they don't necessarily think about. Maybe we've already talked about some of it here, but is there anything specific that you would say, all right, you're traveling to Greenland for your first time. Here's my words of advice and wisdom for you.
Yeah, definitely have some buffer time if you are connecting with international flights, either if it's from Copenhagen or from Iceland. And the other thing is that roaming in Greenland is extremely expensive. So I can recommend to either buy a physical SIM card in Greenland, or if you have dual SIM and you can have an eSIM, there are companies that are offering packages that are really cheap so that you can use them in Greenland while you're there.
Yeah.
I think.
Have you heard of people using Google Fi in Greenland? Google Fi, it's like it picks up on all the different like local networks. We used it in Mongolia successfully.
No, like there will be Wi-Fi in all the hotels, and now it's for free. It used to be also very expensive to buy Wi-Fi in Greenland, but now you have it at the hotels. But no, in Greenland, I mean, often you are without any connection at all. Of course, when you're within communities, the towns or settlements, you will have connection, but otherwise you don't have to go far, then you have no connection at all. So, yeah. So that is also why if you are like going hiking on like long trips on your own, you have to have a satellite phone, for rescue or whatever. Yeah.
All right. We are, again, the problem is we could do this forever and we haven't even had questions. I mean, Kathleen has been sending some messages, which has been wonderful about some of the questions, but we could do this for a while, but we've got 3 minutes. So my question to you is, do you have a favorite book or movie about Greenland that you would recommend to somebody who wants to immerse themselves before they travel?
Okay, this is maybe gonna sound like a weird but there is this amazing film about a rock band, like the first Greenlandic rock band called Sume. It is called The Sound of a Revolution. And it is about, of course, about the band and their songs, but it's very political, but also it was like, it tells the history of Greenlandic identity as well as the relation to Denmark and Greenland as a colony and all that. So it's really interesting.
Okay, we'll put a link to that in the email that we send out. So if you and I can connect after this, and we'll get that information out to the people that are watching either live and or on the recording. Awesome. Is there anything else that we didn't ask you that you want to share in the next 60 seconds? I know, right? No pressure.
If there was anything I forgot to say? I don't think so. I think just go.
Just go. Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Okay. Nishant just sent a message. I don't know if it's a book or a movie. It's Michel the Giant, an African in Greenland. So we'll look that one up. And again, Nishant, is that a it's a book. Okay, it's a book. Thank you. If you have a link, put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll send it out. We'll make a recommendation. There was one that I read. I'll find it later, but that I thought was really, really lovely about. I'll find the book. It's over my bookshelf someplace. But it was a really nice book about Greenland as well. So we'll share some resources. So, Luca, thank you.
Michael, do you want to just tell people how they can get a hold of us and talk more about Greenland?
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. So several ways you can connect with us. Travel at explorer-x.com, hello at explorer-x.com, Greenland at explorer-x.com. All of those work. So feel free to shoot us a message. We have a phone number. It's +1 507 407 4276. If you want to give us a shout, just talk to us. You can give us a call there. At GoExploreX on social media handles. You can follow us there. Anything else, Amanda?
No, I think that's great.
Perfect. And we'll send out in our excuse me, follow-up email, send some of these links as well as a few other resources as well. And again, if anybody is interested in connecting with us individually, travel at hello at Greenland at explorer-x.com works. Cool. All right, Luca, thank you. It's been awesome to chat. We appreciate all your knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.